Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. No reprieve at the pump next week as fuel prices are expected to rise by up to 20 pesos again. Diesel will likely breach the 100 peso mark per liter.
The numbers are also not encouraging from the economic perspective as the peso plunges to another all-time low while more jobless Filipinos are recorded.
But there's always a silver lining. One literacy program in Iloilo becomes the success story of raising reading levels, and it is something that can be replicated nationwide.
Ay ngayon, nagkaubusan nga dito, ay bahala na kung saan kami makakarga nito.
Para naman tayo pambili na. Wala tayong pera para makapag-impact ng...
Para sa akin, siguro habang maaga pa, mag-full tank na tayo. Kasi baka bukas lumaki yung presyo ng gasolina, lugi tayo.
Baka pag umabot pa ng 100 yung crudo na yan, hindi na kami babiyahe.
It's a weekend and the projections for next week's fuel price adjustments are in. Based on industry sources, diesel once again tops the list with the highest increase, and just when oil prices look to be easing, a defiant statement from Iran's new supreme leader again pushed the price of crude oil to $100 a barrel. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza with tonight's Big Story.
Fuel prices are in for another big-time increase in just a few days. The Energy Department has yet to release the final numbers, but oil industry sources estimate it to be another double-digit petting. Diesel is seen to have the highest increase again, between 13 to 22 pesos per liter. Gasoline between 10 to 15 pesos, while kerosene at 20 pesos per liter. Other forecasts, which are based on the 4-day trade monitoring in the means of Platts Singapore peg, the average increases per liter at 16 pesos for diesel, 11 pesos for gasoline, and 3.50 for kerosene. Despite these conservative estimates, diesel is set to breach the 100 pesos per liter mark. This early, there have been instances of supply disruptions in diesel in Metro Manila.
Magkarga sana kami at kailangan nga namin ng siyempre malayo ang aming biyahe. Ay ngayon, nagkaubusan nga dito, ay bahala na kung saan kami makakarga nito.
Katulad do sa amin, sa may lower Bikutan, nung nakarang gabi, papagas kami, wala na.
The Department of Energy maintains there is enough supply of fuel and warned of sanctions for hoarding and price manipulation. But more than supply, the transport sector is already reeling from this week's price increase. Even with the announcement of a 5,000 peso fuel subsidy, transport groups are pressing the government to grant their fare hike petitions by next week. These range from 2 to 5 pesos.
Kahit po kasi may fuel subsidy, kung ganun na po ang susunod na itataas, kung aabutin po ng 100 yan, hindi na po talaga natin kakayanin.
The Transport Department's response, they need more time to study the fare hike.
Ang pagtaas ng pamasahe, ang kaakibat niyan, pagtaas ng mga bilihin at serbisyo. So we have to tread this very carefully with abundance of caution. So yun po yung tinitignan namin ngayon, how to strike a balance.
Lopez also said in a separate interview that they are also thinking of ways to shield the riding public as well from the effects of higher fares, like free rides.
Ang makikinabang dito ay hindi lang po yung sinasabi nating chopper at operator. Malaking makikinabang dito ay yung ating mga commuters. Ang budget po na nakalaan ngayon sa DOTR is 1 billion. So sa tansya naman po namin, sure kakayanin niya abot siya ng mga 3 months.
Of course, we are all hoping that next week's double-digit fuel price hike will be the last. That's if tensions in the Middle East ease in the coming days. But just this Friday, March 13, Iran's new supreme leader threatened to set the Middle East's oil supply on fire if the United States and Israel continue attacking Tehran's infrastructure and ports. In his first public statement, Mujtaba Khamenei also defied calls by U.S. President Donald Trump and global markets to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Khamenei's defiant statements again sent oil prices breaching $100 a barrel today. Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Well, while the increase in PUV fares remains pending, fares in sea vessels have already gone up. In Batangas Port, additional fares range from 30 to 110 pesos. 4 shipping lines have already implemented these fare hikes for trips going to Mindoro and Romblon. Economy class cost going to Calapan is now at 650 pesos from 540 pesos. Puerto Galera trips now go for 650 pesos from 620. Other shipping lines are also expected to increase fares before the Holy Week exodus. And these changes surprised many passengers.
Nakaka-disappoint kasi nung nag-COVID po kasi tumasa sila. Tapos even bumaba naman yung hindi po sila nag-decrease. Tapos ngayon, parang halos parehas lang naman, nag-increase pa ulit sila.
Hindi ba something na expected na to kasi tumaas talaga yung fuel?
May idea na rin ako na tataas talaga pero sobrang taas. Yun lang. Nagulat lang ako.
The Transport Department had this explanation on the sudden fare increases.
Ang fare po kasi nila is deregulated. Bagamat deregulated, ang sinasabi natin sa kanila, kung magtataas sila ng kanilang pamasahe, it should be reasonable. At naglabas po ang Marina ng isang memorandum circular na kung magtataas ng pamasahe ating shipping lines, it must be within 20%.
The transportation sector is the most affected right now by higher fuel costs. How does the agency tasked to oversee it intend to respond? And joining us tonight is Department of Transportation Acting Secretary Giovanni Lopez. Good evening and welcome to the Big Story, Secretary Banoy.
Hi, good evening po, Ma'am Tess, and good evening, ladies, and good evening to everyone who's watching your shows right now.
Okay, the question uppermost in everyone's mind, kailan po ang fare hike at nag-apply na po ba ang mga transport groups?
First, ma'am, I have to separate all the transport modes. First, per sector. First, yung sinasabi natin land transport.
Okay.
There's a pending petition for fare hike, and still we're studying with the LTFRB. We're hoping to release our decision by next week. Then for the shipping lines, the maritime sector, I understand that some of our shipping lines already increased their fares because they are deregulated. And lastly, for the air sector, we're still talking with the airlines for possible ways how to mitigate the effects of these fuel prices.
Mm-hmm. Now, for land transport, there are many modes also. So yung mga jeepney, taxi, bus, TNVS, paano po ang pag-review ng mga price hikes sa kanila?
It will be based on the petition filed before LTFRB, ma'am. I think ang nauna po na sa mga petitions will be for buses, then the jeepneys and the taxis po, no? So that will be the petition that will be decided next week. No, and for the land transport, other than the fare hike, no, we have this subsidy that we're going to roll off by next week, together with the other programs under the DOTR in cooperation with the SWT.
Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, well, hindi ko naman sinasabing dapat nang i-increase, pero kawawa rin yung mga drivers po who are bearing the brunt now before you make the decision.
Tama po, ma'am. No, so I fully agree. So ang inaaral po natin ngayon is more of how to mitigate the effect of the fuel price hike and how to stabilize the fare. So pinapakompute natin, we're asking LTFRB we have this target po sa inflation natin na even if we're going to increase, no, maiintindihan po ng ating mga commuters.
Mm-hmm. You talked also about free rides. How will this be implemented?
We have this program under DOTR. It's called the service contracting. Ito po yung sinasabi nating libreng sakay. And this will be a nationwide program also. And it will benefit directly our commuters, not only the drivers and operators. So nationwide to, in certain areas, in certain sabi natin na cities, no, with high density, the government, the national government will offer free ride po sa lahat ng mga commuters natin. We've done this before, ma'am. And just last year, we've done this in Cebu, in Davao, and also we have this in Valenzuela. So this is a continuing program, and the government allotted 1 billion for this service contracting or libreng sakay.
So also you said next week is the release of the subsidy. How will this, what is the system that you will follow? What's the process?
Right now, ma'am, the subsidy will be released by DSWD through AIX. No, it is a 5,000 cash out. And unahin po natin yung mga tricycle drivers dito sa NCR. Why AIX? Why DSWD? Because the fuel subsidy program of DOTR in the amount of 2.5 billion, we still have to meet some of the conditions like the average of $80 per barrel for 1 month. Yun po yung nakalagay sa 2025 gaan natin. And once we hit that average and we get that certification, that's the only time we can release this fuel subsidy under DOTR. Nonetheless, those drivers, operators, they are now considered as individuals under crisis situation. That's why we can already tap the AIX of the SWD. And Secretary Gatchalian earmarked like 30 billion for this transport group.
Okay, Secretary Banoy, balikan ko lang yung libre sakay. No? You mentioned 1 billion has been allocated to that. How long will that last kaya? And since we don't know when this will end, what are your preps, no, looking ahead? How long are we preparing for?
Based on our estimate, ma'am, we're looking at around 3 months. Kakayanin natin ng 3 months for 1 billion budget.
So yun po ay directly babayaran nyo ang mga public transport?
Yes, ma'am. So we're going to the qualified beneficiaries or the qualified operators the same transport, no? So tayo po yung magbabayad sa kanila, no? It will be a gross service contracting. Ibig sabihin, just tell us how much do you charge per kilometer. Then libre po ang ating mga commuters, then we're going to pay you.
How will you identify though the operators? Kasi syempre maganda po yung everybody will want that, 'di ba? Parang kumbaga bayad na agad sila. So paano po ba pinipili ang mga libreng sakay?
May bidding ba,
Oo
Sec?
nga. Oo, di ba? Kasi syempre baka may mga favorites na makakakuha niyan. Paano po ba? Transparent po ba ang pagpili?
Yes. Yes po. Meron na po, ginawa na po dati to. No? Ang priority natin, the priority of the government is yung sinasabi natin high capacity land transport. Like yung mga buses, no? Sa mga buses din sa mga areas na yon, sa mga cities. Then yung mga modern jeepney. So may mga list na rin po ang DOTR. And basically this is open to all as long as they can qualify in the sense that they can comply with the requirements of LTFRB.
Okay. Sa sea travel, Sec Banoy, no, you mentioned deregulated nga ito, kaya ngayon pa lang ay nagtaas presyo na. As we also mentioned, I don't know if you heard our report before you came on. What is the plan? Are you also talking to them? The same way the DOE spoke to the oil distributors and oil sellers na baka pwedeng stagger, ganon?
The shipping lines, ma'am? Are you referring to the shipping lines?
Shipping lines, pati yung mga roro at saka yung mga ferry po.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Through Marina, no? So we're coordinating with them. So that basically we're asking for their cooperation. They understand the situation right now. But ang sabi nga lang natin, no? We don't want you to raise the fare na it amounts to being exorbitant already. So kapag unconscionable, kasi there are some areas, for example, there is this area in Zamboanga, based on the report, the fare increase is more or less 140%. And that's too much, based on our study. So those are the things that I told Marina that we have to sanction them. No, so they can. That's why Marina is coming out with a memorandum circular, and they're allowing increase 20% only because that's based on the current situation right now.
Though every time that there will be a fuel increase, fuel price hike, then we can adjust our memorandum circular and we expect the shipping lines to follow.
Well, Secretary, as you mentioned, you are just waiting for the formal trigger before rolling out the fuel subsidy program, no? But if this does get implemented already, uunahin po ba ang Metro Manila? Because the concern of some is that prices of oil, of gas in provinces are even higher. So dapat ma-prioritize din po sana sila.
The issue that they're raising, ma'am, na inuuna natin ng Metro Manila is because for AX, no, inuuna natin yung tricycle drivers. And why Metro Manila and why not other provinces? Ang sinasabi lang po natin ngayon is because of the tricycle drivers under the jurisdiction of LGUs at handa na po yung NCR. No? At yan na po yung mga Metro Manila mayors natin. And based on our meeting, we can start with the NCR, then we can go out later on with the other provinces. So tuloy-tuloy lang po yan. Now, for the fuel subsidy naman of DOTR, it will be a simultaneous roll-off with the rest of the other provinces. So nationwide siya.
And if we may just clarify also, Secretary, magkakaroon po ba ng iba-ibang level of subsidy depending on the type of vehicle? Because I think I read somewhere na magiging mas mataas yung subsidy for modern jeepneys compared to traditional jeepneys. And some find that quite unfair, ano? Maybe you can help clarify that, Secretary.
Yes, ma'am. Based on the previous fuel subsidy program of LTFRB, tama nga po, no, it's not an equal subsidy but more of a proportionate subsidy. For example, buses, kung bakit mas mataas ang kanilang subsidiya for the simple reason that they have higher operating costs compared to like an NC taxi, like the motorcycle taxi. No? So yung operating cost ng motorcycle taxi is much lesser than the mga big capacity transport mode. Ganun din po, the mas mataas ang operating cost ng ating modern jeepney compared to a traditional jeepney. So, it will not be equal. That's based on the computation of LTFRB. Hindi po sila pantay yung pagbibigay ng subsidiya.
Okay. How will the drivers partake of this subsidy? Because it's the operators who will be distributing, right? And some drivers say they don't really get much. It's the operators who really get this subsidy.
Yes, ma'am. That's the issue before, ma'am. That was the issue before. That's why we revised our policy. This time, it's both operator and driver. So, for example, what we're doing right now with Metro Manila, since LTFRB has the master list when it comes to operators, we don't have any list when it comes to drivers. What we do right now is that we give the mayors the contact number of those operators under their jurisdiction in order for the mayors, for the LGU, to coordinate with that operator and to identify its drivers. Simple as that. So now once we get the drivers and everything, even the drivers, they're going to get the subsidy.
Mm-hmm. So this is the requirement you said needed in localities outside Metro Manila. Kasi sabi nyo,
yes,
handa na yung Metro Manila pero yung iba hindi pa handa. So this is all the information that you need to be able to roll out the subsidy.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking ahead, Secretary Banoy, I know we are very shocked right now and this is very disruptive, but there's also opportunity. So I wanted to ask you, I recall maybe 10 years ago, medyo parang nauuso yung mga EV na tricycles, especially sa ibang mga LGUs. I wonder if we have a more solid plan to pursue that and also the PUV modernization program perhaps? Kasi parang yung pag-co-op may parang ganun din, diba, sa pag-roll out nung subsidiya?
Ma'am, are you referring to the EV mismo, yung EV that we see on yung light electric vehicle, yung below 50 kilograms?
Parang ano siya, parang yung, sige, drop ko na yung name mo, Bajaj. Bajaj na parang tricycle, na yung nasa gitna po yung bisikleta.
Oh. Yeah, the funny thing, ma'am, they're not being regulated right now by LTFRB.
Oh.
They're not considered as a common carrier, no? So yun po yung that's why there's a need for us. As a matter of fact, those below 50, there's an issue right now, no, na if there's a need to have them registered before LTO. So yun yung inaayos natin sa department order natin. My personal view there is that under the EVIDA law, those light electric vehicles below 50 kilograms, you don't have to register them. But what we're saying is that even if you don't have to register them, at least the driver should have a driver's license. So yung mga inaayos natin ngayon. Yes, ma'am.
I'm specifically referring to yung mga iba, sa ibang mga lalawigan. Like, I remember distinctly mga 8-9 years ago sa Ilocos po. Yung parang lahat po nung trike doon kasi is Bajaj na. So, and they are the parang TODA there. Is that a possibility that we could explore, perhaps?
If it's TODA, ma'am, if it's a tricycle that's under the jurisdiction of the LGU, not the LTFRB, not the OTR.
Okay, what about the PUVMP? I understand we want to also pursue electric vehicles as our jeepneys, right? So, can we perhaps, I don't know, revisit it or make some strides?
Or maybe fast track. Because, you know, we don't want to be so oil dependent and have
Yes,
to
ma'am.
think more long term. Yung hindi na po tayo nagre-react tuwing may crisis, but, you know, have a longer term outlook.
Tama po. As a matter of fact po, that's part of our modernization program. We encourage po, no, under our modernization program, we need to incentivize itong mga electric vehicles natin as part of our modern land transport. So yan po yung tinutulak po talaga natin.
Meron po bang plano na
The plan is now ongoing po, no? Itong mga modernization program natin, especially for jeepney, they can use EV as a modern jeepney, and we're encouraging also as part of our modernization fleet for buses, they can use EV. So we're just looking for ways how to incentivize them more for using electric vehicles po.
I think
we allow them, as a matter of fact, we encourage them to purchase electric vehicles po as part for land transport.
I mean, like, maybe we could use this war as one of the ways to incentivize. I mean, I know it sounds terrible, but practically speaking, parang now we can see and maybe we can convert more of them now that we see what we have to go through and we don't even know when this will end.
Tama po, ma'am. As a matter of fact, when we were discussing this, sabi nga namin sa mga transport groups, if we're all EVs, hindi natin maapektuhan masyado ito sa pagtaas na kasi we're not dependent on the fuel anymore. So I hope also that our transport group realize, no, na mas maganda na we go EV, no, or hybrid. At least hybrid lang if they want, no. So there's a good point in having their fleet modernized also.
And just as a final question, Secretary, what assurance can we give the members of the transport sector? Because the struggle is really real for them. I was able to speak to a TNVS driver actually a couple of days ago, and he said na nahirapan na talaga siya to make ends meet. He earns 3,000 a day, pero 1,800 doon napupunta sa pagpapakarga ng gas, yung 1,200 pang boundary. So at the end of the day, nagpapagod sila. No? They're plying their routes, they're tired, they're driving for 12 hours every day, pero ngayon, nagsastruggle talaga sila. So, and they're also worried that the cash subsidies may not be enough, especially if this conflict ensues. So, what assurances can the government give the members of this sector?
The first thing that we should do also is more of the communication with them. Naiintindihan ko some of the transport groups. That's why they have lots of questions because the government officials like us are not reaching out. Could be that we're not reaching out or the message is not coming across, no? So ang una nga ginawa natin, like this morning, there's this MC taxi. So I have to assure them that they're part of the subsidy. No? So now in the roll out of the subsidy, we just have to be not really. There should be a sense of urgency also on our part.
Yes.
So that's why, there should be a sense of urgency on the part of the government. That's why I instructed LTFRB, no. Not only, it should be a whole of government approach. No? Hindi lang po ito pang DOTR. That's why DSWD is there and the LGUs. So that once we roll this out, sabay-sabay po. No? Sabay-sabay. I know there's a lot of like transport groups. Pero we have to start somewhere. We have to start somehow. So unahin po natin yan lahat sila, no, mga tricycle drivers, and we go to jeepney. But we're going to do, ang sinasabi nga natin, we don't have to do we don't have to do ng parang the order of the or sequential payout. Once we're done with the list, maybe we can start giving out the subsidy. So parang work on a workable basis. Kapag tapos na natin ang listahan ng taxi, ibigay na natin. Kapag tapos na natin ang listahan ng mga buses, ibigay na natin. So yun na lang po yung game plan namin. I think I understand na medyo mahaba itong prosesong to, pero makakaasa naman po ang transport groups natin na talagang gagawin natin na mas mapapabilis ang pagbibigay ng kanilang subsidiya.
So Lunes meron na?
Ang target po labid with Secretary Gatchalian is on Tuesday. I guess March 17th. Yes,
Tuesday. All right, babantayan po namin. Marami pong salamat, Department of Transportation Acting Secretary Banoy Lopez.
In related news, authorities confirm that more Filipinos are on board ships that have been bombed at the Strait of Hormuz. Out of 3 oil tankers bombed on Tuesday, 2 had Filipino crew members. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Kakdak assured all 38 of these seafarers are now safe. But according to the International Seafarers Action Center, there are still Filipinos in stranded cruise ships. Communication remains a challenge for vessels intentionally blocked along the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, and the Persian Gulf.
Walang obligatory internet sa mga barko na libre sa mga seafarer. Tapos pag stranded sila, hindi rin sila makatawag. Pangalawa, yung global positioning po, naka-jam yan. Dinajam yan ng US, mga US military. So, conservatively, sasabihin ko, mga 1/3 nun, o almost 7,000 nun, mga Pilipino. Kung baka po mahigit pa.
Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs recorded almost 200 requests for repatriation in Dubai and 68 in Abu Dhabi. Authorities have likewise advised Filipinos in California, USA, to prepare after the FBI warned of possible drone attacks by Iran.
Kapag may ganyan po na mga impormasyon, kailangan din po talaga maghanda ang ating bansa para sa ating mga kababayan. At hindi po ito pwedeng isawalang bahala o tulugan. Kailangan po na maging alerto rin po tayo kung ano man ang mangyayari sa ating mga kababayan sa California.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, after a full 3-month run as a collegial body, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, is winding down operations, ending its flood control scandal probe. That and more stories are still ahead. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Big Story. The Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2, is pushing to replicate a literacy program in Iloilo. That model raised reading levels among grade 3 students from 28% to 90%. Under the program, teachers write the reading modules, then parents and community volunteers use these materials to tutor children one-on-one. The learning happens both in school and at home. The provincial government of Iloilo funded the modules in partnership with non-government organization Sinergia Foundation. School boards were also instructed to include students, NGOs, and businesses, while mayors were given access to real-time reading proficiency data. No consultants were hired at any point of the program. And to discuss this with us further is Dr. Milwida Guevara, Executive Director of Sinergia Foundation Incorporated. Good evening, Nene, and welcome to the Big Story once again.
Hi, hello, Ces. Haven't seen you for a long time.
Yes, we're so happy that, in the middle of all the bad news, we are sharing a bit of good news, something really wonderful. First of all, congratulations. Tell us how you got involved in this and how terrible were the statistics when you began the program?
Well, the statistics throughout the country are really terrible because only one of grade 4 students can read very well. So the transformation of the Iloilo provincial government, I think 12 local governments in especially Iloilo City participated in the proof of concept. There is really nothing special here. But what really mattered was the leadership of the local governments, the mayors, the governors. So they took it upon themselves that they are responsible for education. Hindi pinamahala sa central government lamang, but they accepted the responsibility. They provided leadership, they mobilized the community, they provided resources. So with the leadership of the mayor, they put together a program which involved capacity building of teachers, principals, parents, NGOs, volunteers. So in fact, it's really the entire village supporting the reading proficiency of students.
Yun yung it takes a village talaga to
Oo,
get a
talagang
Filipino child to read.
Kasi ano yan it's a principle, but we rarely make it possible. Ito talaga sa Iloilo, magmula sa governor hanggang sa alkalde, talagang they only looked at one target. 85% of the children should be able to read. The second important thing is the use of data, because we have to use data to be able to find out what are the weaknesses of children, what are the weaknesses of teachers, so that it does not become a standard curriculum. You start from where the children are. So use of data. Third is really localizing the learning activities, because they have to learn their stories. They have to love their culture. So it's really the teachers developing their stories, developing the reading exercises, and sharing what activities are best for the children. Kasi sa atin, we are always dependent on the central government. But many of our teachers are very, very good. We just have to tap them and give them enthusiasm and support. So the last one is really the involvement of parents and communities. So they have to supervise. Many of them are very, very busy or probably very poor, and some of them cannot read. So that there are parallel programs to enable them to read, the parents, to develop parenting skills, to be able to read with the children. So I think, well, of course, we develop modules for the teachers and work exercises, workbooks for children. So what the teachers taught, the children were able to do exercises, and they brought the workbooks home so that they are able to share it with their parents. So simply lang, hindi siya magic. It's just really the leadership, the accountability of the mayors and the governors. So tinanggap nilang buo-buo. Kasi yung mga mayors natin, mga politiko, they build schools, they build gyms, they build multifunction halls. But this is really a comprehensive approach. So they know that some of the children are hungry. They know that the children do not have many, many books. So it's really a comprehensive approach. And the mayors have been trained, they have been trained to be passionate, to make it as an objective that all the grade 3 children should read. And if they have their passion, they can really mobilize the community support. So yun lang naman, hindi siya masyadong miracle.
So your target was 85%, but in Iloilo, you hit 90%, which is a lot more than the goal, right? But I'm curious, Doc, paano to? There's a lot of debate about the mother tongues and its usage in basic education. How did that play out in Iloilo? Did you use Hiligaynon also? Or is it pure English or English-Filipino Hiligaynon?
The mayors actually set the target. The governor wanted 100% of the children should read. But they said they should also read in English. The DepEd was saying Hiligaynon, pero the mayors were saying no, they should also learn English. So fortunately, English and Filipino are phonetic, no? 'Di ba? They have the same sounds. So they were both reading in Filipino and in English. But we found out that, of course, the children can express themselves better. They can comprehend better when they use Filipino. They can learn English, but they're more proficient. Yung critical thinking skills, very important yun di ba? That's why in English kasi, they find it very difficult to comprehend the English term, the English words. But yung Pilipino, kayang-kaya nilang mag-isip. Kaya sabi ko, siguro talaga to develop thinking skills, we should really use Filipino.
How did you arrive at that conclusion? No? Was it from the input of the educators or the teachers themselves, the parents?
Of course, the teachers shared their best experiences. But from the results of the tests, we analyzed that the children perform better in Filipino. Of course, they perform well in English also, but yung comprehension talaga is really a problem. But when the stories are read in Filipino and they are asked to answer questions in Filipino, they do very well.
You're saying it's not a miracle, it's very simple, but still, aside from leadership and passion, may cost din. How much was it? How much did Synergia invest, and also the local government?
Senator Sani Angara, who was then a senator, gave us 5 million. But they only spent 3 million. Kasi nga, the local governments shared, they financed the training of teachers kasi we were only aiming for the training of grade 3 teachers. Sinama na nila yung kinder, grade 1, hanggang grade 6, no? So it became a very big project because the local governments were involved. Alam mo, sis, mahirap din yung local governments kasi hindi nga devolved yung education. So sabi nila, well, it's not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of the central government. And then, the mayors, they're populist, di ba? A lot of them are populist.
Okay.
They do not, education does not lead short-term results. And there are no monuments. Kasi yan di ba? It's abstract. So, paano mo mapipilit yung alkalde?
Saka hindi pa bumoboto yung edad na yan.
Yan, totoo yan. Kaya mahirap siya. Mahirap din on the part of the principals and supervisors kasi ayaw din nilang pinapakialaman ng alkalde. Kasi minsan yung alkalde politiko, di ba? So it's a difficult reform kasi talagang you really have to, well, ako talaga I embarrass the mayors. Ano ba yan, mayor? Ang mga bata mo, hindi ba kabasa? Hindi ka ba nahihiya niyan, di ba? So parang ganun. So,
ganun pala dapat. Pero dapat bang i-devolve ang education?
Dapat i-devolve pero in the long term. Kasi ang daming dapat baguhin First, you have to build the capacities of mayors, di ba? To be passionate about education and to be participatory because they have to listen to the problems. They have to involve the community in developing an education plan. Yung mga alkalde, hindi yan marunong makinig. Gusto niya magdidiskurso, di ba? Ito yung parang we modeled it after Jesse Robredo. Yung talagang he called for summits, assembly halls, assembly meetings, and then pinaliwanag niya, na kung mga bata natin, they can only read very poorly, ganyan. Kasi what the parents see in their cards, 85%. So akala nila, the children are doing well. Yung pala, hindi makabasa, di ba? So,
pinasa lang.
Yeah, we're very poor in data analysis talaga. Because the mayors just see numbers. And for example, kahit when I attend meetings, nako, nanalo sa declamation contest, we're number one in sports, we're number one in literature. Eh, hindi nga makabasa, no? What do you do with medals in sports when the children cannot read? Mahirap, it's very hard to internalize. Naku, nanggigigil ako minsan sa mga
But it
shareholders
worked.
na
Yung paggigigil nyo.
Minsan kailangan talaga ng real talk, di ba,
Oo.
Doc?
Reality check. Pak, pak.
Pero Doc, what I found interesting in what you said earlier was how you used data to determine the weaknesses, to find out where the students are, and that's where you tailor the curriculum. Ano? You didn't depend so much on the centralized, standardized curriculum. But with that kind of approach, ma-replicate po ba yun, Doc, nationwide, on a national level?
O syempre naman, you just need, kasi sa Iloilo, the governor wholeheartedly said that education is the core of the responsibility of local governments. And then when we presented the data that only 40% of the children can read, he was very embarrassed and shocked, no? Sabi niya, this is our future. So ganon talaga, if the mayors and the governors feel that way, then they will really accept the
They will
accountability
invest
for
in it.
education.
Yeah.
Yeah, hindi eh. Ay nako, talaga. Minsan,
But you said dapat i-devolve, but in the long term, look what happened to health. Din-evolve.
kasi nga
It
wala
was
masyadong preparation and capacity building. But here, it's a process. Eh. You build the capacities of the mayors, you build the capacity of local school boards, you also build the capacity of, it's a change management thing eh. Behavioral change. Diba? Everybody should participate. Mahirap yun ha. In our society, we're very autocratic. Parang everything comes from the top. Here, you will have to empower citizens and give them space. Everybody must be responsible and you should contribute. That's a
that's
very
really-
difficult paradigm.
That's that's what you've been advocating in Synergia talaga, di ba? The
Yeah,
whole
oo.
community should be involved. So how do you get businesses, NGOs, and volunteers to be part of this?
Well, we always use the shock and awe approach. Yung shock talagang nakakahiya naman tayo, di ba? We're at the bottom. Ang gagaling natin, gaganda ninyo. Pagkatapos, at the bottom of math and reading. So, and the other one is, you can do it. We can do it because there are models. Well, our current models would be the Sherwin Gatchalian, Rex Gatchalian. They were former mayors. The mayor of Navotas, the mayor of Pupi. And our favorite says, Sulu, magagaling din sila tong tawi-tawi, di ba? So there are very successful stories. We just have to get our acts together.
Doc, I'm curious, no? We mentioned the 11 LGUs already in Iloilo, and led, of course, by the governor. But I'm wondering, because I was looking at your Facebook, meron din isang mayor from Western Mindanao who approached you guys. So I'm guessing may partnership na lalabas. How many more mayors or LGU heads or governors have actually approached Synergia and asked for help?
We actually have about 500 or more. 500 mayors who are doing this. And of course, 500 is really very small compared to the 1,500 local governments, di ba? So we just need to, do it one LGU at a time. And probably if we have more NGOs and academic institutions adopting the it takes a village approach and really putting it into action, we can do it naman.
Dapat
Kaya
pala
lang,
DILG should get involved. I mean,
They
What?
are.
They are.
Kasi they are, in fact, DILG has pushed for the inclusion of the CSOs in the local school board. But ano talaga kakapacitate mo talaga Kasi yung, just for them to listen and share their thoughts, it's very difficult. Kasi pag nagsasalita na yung alkalde o yung superintendente, tameme na lahat, di ba? So it's really a cultural change.
2 years, no, it took in Iloilo. I think you started in 2024. Do you think that's an achievable timeline for all the other LGUs that want to adopt your methods?
nakakapagod kasi 2 years grade 3 lang yun, di ba? So, but if you can adapt the process, I think Iloilo and all the other LGUs that we are working with, it's really a process eh. It's not a technique. It's not a... Kasi sa atin, puro are methods that are done in Vietnam. These are methods done in Pakistan. Hindi method, no? Proseso yan. Yun lang ang paraan kong sinasay. Proseso siya. Hindi siya methodology. Hindi siya bagong technique.
Parang you invest time talaga. You have to invest time, effort. So, how to multiply
And
you?
Sana nga yung lahat ng CEOs at saka lahat ng local governments. Because our local governments, we invested in them, yung time. Pero yung alkalde, ganun din eh. Pa-speech lang, ganyan. Pagka-speech, aalis na. Hindi pwede. Kailangan makinig ka. Ito yung problema ng mga bata. Ang problema ng magulang. And that is where the programs will be built on. But if the mayor does not listen, wala rin, di ba? Walang time, ewan ko ba, hindi magandang leader.
Kayo naman, naka-achieve na nga kayo ng ng
90%.
mataas, 90%. Nagre-reklamo pa.
Magaling sila kasi. May si Jerry Treñas, ang galing-galing noon, di ba? Kahit yung mayor ng Ignas, bilib na bilib ako doon. Yung mayor ng Sara, talagang yung puso nila nandoon. Talagang galit sila pag hindi nakabasa yung bata. Sila pa mismo yung nagpapakasa ng bata at sila yung nagbabasa ng storya, di ba? Marami din sa La Union, ang gagaling din nila, di ba? So they are, yun nga sana tulungan nyo kami to be able to scale this up. Di ko lang alam kung paano.
All right, well, we'll just spread the good word. That's all we can do. But kung kailangan ng volunteer,
Okay, game.
Volunteer.
Tatlo kami dito.
Dr. Milwida Guevara.
You can be influencers.
For sure, ma'am.
Executive Director of Synergia Foundation Incorporated. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
And we are pausing for another breather, but right after that, Senator Bato de la Rosa had asked to use the Senate property in Baguio, but his request was denied. Found out why when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
The big story is back with the peso sinking to another historic low as the Middle East conflict enters its third week. The Philippine currency dropped by 35 centavos this afternoon to settle at 59.73.735 against the greenback. It surpasses the record set just this Monday when the local unit closed at 59.50 to the dollar. The peso touched an intraday low of 59.75. As for the PSEI, it declined for the second straight session, falling by nearly 0.9%. Meantime, the unemployment rate in January 2025 hit a pandemic era, or 2026, hit a pandemic high of 5.8%, translating to 2.96 million jobless Filipinos. The figure nearly matched the joblessness rate in June 2022, when it reached 6%. The Philippine Statistics Authority warns the Middle East conflict may cause companies to freeze hire or cut jobs altogether. The impact of the war will be reflected in figures for March.
And here are the other stories making headlines this Friday, starting with the end of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. Panel Chairperson Andres Reyes Jr. has announced that ICI will cease operations by March 31 after 90 days of existence. The fact-finding body submitted 9 referrals involving 65 individuals to the Ombudsman and formed a 20-agency technical working group for asset recovery. It has also developed 3 systems to help detect fraud in infrastructure projects. Reyes has turned over all gathered documents and evidence to Ombudsman Boying Remulla, with copies to be furnished to the Justice and Public Works departments.
In another development, Malacanang has denied that a former spokesman to the late President Noynoy Aquino has been shortlisted for a cabinet post. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Edwin Lasierda is not replacing the ICT Secretary Henry Aguda. This rumor came one day after Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco was removed and reassigned as Presidential Advisor for Sustainable and Resilient Communities. And in other news, Vice President Sara Duterte believes the House's request to place Ramil Madriaga under House custody proves her impeachment complaints lack basis. Madriaga claimed in an affidavit that Duterte bankrolled her 2022 campaign using funds from pogo operators and drug lords. And Senator Bato de la Rosa's request to use the upper chamber's mansion in Baguio City has been denied. De la Rosa is asking that his family be accommodated there during the Chief of Staff Armed Forces of the Philippines Shooting Cup from March 26 to 29. Senate Secretary Mark Leandro Mendoza says Senator Bato himself must be present when using the property. Problem is, he has been in hiding since November over the threat of an alleged ICC warrant for his arrest. The Senate mansion in Baguio is also undergoing repairs at this time.
And for our big picture tonight, a recognition for the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA. Finally, after years of bad publicity, the main gateway of the Philippines is slowly entering the good spotlight. NAIA is now the 7th best airport in the world for layover food. Wow! That's according to UK-based Airport Parking and Hotels. The travel authority assessed dining options at the world's 50 busiest airports, and recently the new NAIA Infra Corporation opened a mezzanine food hall at Terminal 3, bringing local and international concepts under one roof.
Well, that's some good news to end the week.
Yeah.
Emotional roller coaster tayo today.
Kaso sino na makaka-afford bumiyahe ngayon?
Oo nga. Kain na lang tayo sa food court. Pwede
Hindi
mo naman
natin natanong kay DOTR Secretary yung
yung fuel surcharges usually. Pero nakikita na natin sa ibang bansa, di ba, Pao? Buti pa si Pao, kakabalik lang from Japan.
Pero mukhang matatagalan ulit. Matatagal. Ang mahal na. All right, but that will do it for us here on The Big Story this week. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here on Monday at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are one news, all sides, all the time. Good night and have a restful weekend. Don't worry too much about the price hikes.
Kasi Tuesday pa naman.